The first time I ever heard of Minecraft, me and my friend were hanging out in the school cafeteria, and he told me about a block game with there was a spaceman and a dwarf, and they were digging a diggy hole. And I was interested and checked out Minecraft.net after school, and they had a page where you could play Minecraft Classic. That was my first experience with the game, stepping into the world, feeling the feeling of lonely isolation, but also the beauty and mystery, wanting to explore and find the caves. If you haven't played Classic, it's basically like a rudimentary form of creative mode. No flying or anything, but you can place and break blocks instantly. When you start in Classic, you just boot into the world. You're given 9 things. You're given stone, cobblestone, bricks, dirt, oak planks, oak log, oak leaves, glass, and smooth stone slabs. It's kind of crazy to think they had slabs even that far back. But recently I found a way to play Classic again, and when I started the game and saw those familiar 9 blocks on my hotbar, I was inspired. I thought, 9 blocks is not a lot to go off of, but I still think, like, with just 2 blocks, the number of combinations you can have is, or rather, the number of different things you can make out of just 2 blocks is quite a lot. But out of 7 blocks, there's so many different combinations you can make. Sorry, 9 blocks, there's even more combinations. It's certainly limited, but it's not a small limit. So I wanted to try to explore that. See what kind of things can you make out of just those 9 blocks. I figured that there must be some kind of meta to it, something that would be the most optimal way to use these 7 blocks. So I made this little test area in my world where I was just combining different blocks to see which looked better. I have a bunch of these little houses where I tried different roofs and different floors and different walls. You can see a stone, what do they call this? Anyway, the stone border on the bottom of the wall, oak planks, little things above the window. Yeah, I wish I knew more terms. These pillars of cobble, brick, and then I switch it out. Brick pillars, stone walls, wood pillars, oak log walls, oak planks, cobblestone roof, cobblestone pillars, and oak roof. I made all these different little tests to sort of see what combinations work best. When you're working with such a limited palette of block, it forces you to be creative and use blocks in ways they maybe weren't intended. I considered making a large brick wall with dirt to sort of represent the seams between larger bricks. I think it looks alright. I didn't end up using this though. This house I tested out a bunch of different block combinations. It's sort of like a bunch of modern art or something, just random block combinations and different orientations, just to see if it would inspire me in any kind of way. It's pretty weird. But this house also features a bunch of different types of windows. I have this oak thing running along the top. Here's one kind of window you could do. This is just different block combinations too. I'm working with limited space here, and this is pretty much the best window you can do in a 4x4. I have these walls here where I tried different pillars on different walls. Like brick pillars on a cobble wall, or cobble pillars on a brick wall. cobble pillars on a stone wall, wood pillars on a cobble wall, all that. More different window designs. Trying to use the dirt under some kind of, uh, well, it's not a column, but it's not a row. Anyway, a horizontal beam under there, there's some different coloration to maybe try and vary up the look. Here's like maybe an indentation with dirt. Here I just tried to make a gradient of the blocks from one side to the other. Different pillars next to each other. Whatever this is, kind of looks nice. And then I also made this little house here that's actually a little bit more decorated. Got like shrubs going down this walkway. For some reason this makes me think of a garage, like you would park your van here. So this is a little test house I made. Some nice shrub decorations, and then nice brick walls. Go in here. This is like the kitchen area. There's a table here to eat. This kind of looks like a stove or a grill. That's supposed to be like a cabinet. Some like shelves for like a pantry. And this is a TV screen. It's hard to explain what... Well, let me try and explain. So this is supposed to be a city view. You're supposed to be looking out in a city. The buildings are brown and the street is stone colored, like this color. So there's a building in the foreground on the right and in the background on the left, and then we can see the street in between these buildings. I don't know. With the limited combinations you have, you do have to get creative, and that's what I like. Although, admittedly, I'm not that creative, so it's tough for me. Here's like a, I don't know, side table, whatever they call it, like some drawers or something. And then we have a little outdoor sitting area, like a balcony. Definitely, this house taught me that I do really like the way that bricks and smooth stone slabs look together. It's a very clean and luxurious look, and that's what I really wanted to go for. I made this other sort of luxurious space, which is all like glass and smooth stone with little arches, and shrubs to give it some life. There's like a little seating area here. This feels like a really fancy, like, train station or something. So I like this look too, although I didn't really end up using it. After doing all this, I don't know, something hit me, a spark hit me, and I was like, if I really want to build something awesome out of all these blocks, I have to go big. I have to make something that's a whole area to sort of set the tone and give context to these blocks and make them feel colorful. So I set out and started building a little city. Now, city is kind of an exaggeration. It's only about a dozen buildings. But I built this. This is a small model of the city. I guess it's like 1/9 scale or something like that. So there's this terrain that I started out with, and then I started placing buildings on top of it. I put some big brick buildings near the upper areas because I thought brick was sort of one of the most luxurious materials. Got some wooden buildings around that I sort of imagine having like decks that you can stand on. This one's interesting because it starts down on this level and then goes up here and then is up on this level. And then a bunch of stone buildings too. I tried to make the shapes interesting in their own right, as far as like imagining like, okay, this is a building you can go in here and there's like a balcony out here. And this is maybe a balcony out here. And this is a balcony out here. But also trying to get it to look good from this perspective. There's like a decent amount of up and down and up and down and up and down going on in the skyline. So it's got a unique skyline, and it looks cool from this perspective too, a little bit. And one of the biggest structures, because I realized that another thing that I really like about the kind of builds that people make with the really limited block palette is generally they make them impressive by their scale. So there's this really big sprawling structure, which you could consider to be multiple buildings, or you could all consider it one building. Most of these buildings are actually connected by doorways, like there's a doorway from here to here. So is it one building, is it two? I don't know, but it's big and it's sprawling, and I think that gives an impressive result. I have these little trees here representing where I would put trees in there to give it a little bit more life. You don't want just a flat, boring nothing everywhere. And in the real one, there's like a tunnel right here, but not that it leads anywhere in the city. So I then, while working on this, wanted to have a model that was more cross-sectioned off. So I split each of the layers of that and split them the first layer, second layer, third layer, fourth layer, and fifth layer. And I worked up. So I built this house, I built that house, I built this house, and I built that floor of that house, and that house, and that house. And then went to the second layer, started building this stuff, and I had the layout of how I would lay out each building from this. Then I moved up to this layer, and then finally all I had to do was cap off the end of the tall brick building in the middle. So I did this over the course of only less than a week, I think. It was a few days, and it's rare that I've ever built anything that big in this game, but the convenience of having such a limited block palette is I didn't have to sit there forever thinking like, oh, should I use chiseled deep slate or should I use deep slate bricks? I just went for it and used whatever color was the best for that time and just tried to find something that looked good. And I wish I'd found more creative uses for the blocks. I did things pretty standard, so it's pretty standard. You might have seen builds kind of like this before, but I'm still pretty happy with what I made. So I'd like to go look at it. So let's go take a look at the city. This is a little, like, I don't know, municipal river I made. I don't really consider it part of the build, but it's a nice visual aspect of this part of the world. As you can see, the cities start to come into view here. I wanted pretty much every building to feel luxurious in its own way. But definitely one of the most luxurious is the giant sprawling cobble structure that is sort of like a mansion or something. So yeah, there's this big cobblestone structure with various types of stone and glass that I consider to be like a mansion. We have this little brick building over here that kind of reminds me of a bakery. A wooden building, kind of looks like apartments or something. This part of the cobble building is very cathedral inspired, kind of trying to go for some Gothic architecture. Up there you can see the big building, which is sort of like a town hall, I based it on Grand Central Station a little bit with the arches and pillars. I have a little cobble house here. This really clean stone building kind of makes me think of, especially with its modern sort of smooth round shape, makes me think of like a grocery store. This wooden building turned out to be sort of like a cabin. This this bridge, uh, I feel like there's got to be more ways of making cool bridges with this limited block palette, but that's what I figured out to do there. And it is nice to have a little gap there where there's that dynamic element of going to uh, going over a gap using a bridge instead of it all just being one flat area that you can just walk around. I don't know what I would call this wood building. It's like I don't know. Maybe that'd be like a library or something. I haven't furnished these places yet, and maybe I will furnish them. I guess if people like saw this video and said, "Oh, you should furnish it," I would do that. This stone building has some nice arches and stuff. This was actually the first building I built, like I mentioned. This building is kind of, for some reason, gives me the vibes of a workshop. This seems like a house or something that someone would live in. This this one has so much greenery. It's got like a greenhouse at the top that I don't know. I don't know if it could be a whole greenhouse, but it's definitely got like a plant vibe. Maybe it's a restaurant? I don't know. And then this definitely looks like apartments up here. And then this building, I took a little bit of inspiration from Art Deco, not that I think I nailed it. But we have that area of uh, red at the top with these like lights that are supposed to look like those little circular bulb lights that you used to see around all the time. So let's take a look at some of these buildings. So I used a lot of these spiral staircases uh, because they save space on the floor. You'll note that they don't look perfect because back in the day you could only place slabs bottom or full. There was no upper slab. So even though there's not really any good reason, I decided to stick to that as another limitation. I think that being able to place upper slabs is great, but at the same time, limitation breeds creativity. And I think that that was proven to me in this build because I definitely would never have built something this expansive without all the limitations that I had. This is the kind of greenery building. Let's take a look up here. On the floor, and there's a deck out here. We can see a nice view of the rest of things over here. Seems like a good place to host a party. And one of the only decorations I do have, just because it adds some color, is this is like a little greenhouse area up here. I don't know if they're like growing little trees or what they're growing, but it adds some nice greenery, and it just seemed fitting since I went for this glass roof that it should just be a greenhouse. So there's a lot of connections in between the buildings. Like this also connects over here to the wood building. And we have this roof area that you can stand out and look at the world. For wooden structures, the meta has not changed much in the entire course of the game. You basically use oak as the filler block, and then you do borders and interesting things out of the logs. Another limitation I placed on myself is you used to only be able to place logs? You used to only be able to place logs facing up, straight up and down. And so I also used that limitation, which honestly, as cool as it is to be able to place logs sideways, there's something that's cool about like this texture of like seeing the underside of the log all the time. Just seeing the bark always is not as interesting as we might think, I think. Moon is setting over here. A lot of the buildings I have a little cobblestone border at the bottom that kind of looks like the foundation for the building, and then a cleaner stone above that, except for where I tried to create a look of like an indentation, as if just like this pillar is popping out from the wall, I kind of wanted it to look like this pillar is also popping out, so there's casting a shadow on here. And from a distance, I do think it works. Lots of arched windows in this whole build because arches are very luxurious. We would put in lots of sunlights too. It used to be a thing in Classic that builds always had to have sunlights or sunroofs or whatever. What do they call them? Anyway, natural lighting was big because areas would just always be completely dark and dingy without the help of a glass thing to let in the sunlight. So I included a lot as well because I think it does give a nice look to areas when it's daytime. It makes them very bright and nice looking, and it's something I never did until I played old versions of the game. When you play Classic, there's actually no torches, so you have to use skylights. That's what they're called, skylights. You have to use skylights or it'll just be really dark, like pitch black inside of your buildings. I did include torches in this build. That's the limitation I didn't place on myself, because otherwise everything would be completely pitch dark at night. So there's a connection here over to this building that I thought kind of looked like a workshop. And there's more connections too, because if we go up here, we can actually get onto the roof of this building. And that also connects over to this balcony area of like the workshop. And this workshop, you see we were just down here, also connects over to this brick building. This is one of the only non-spiral staircases I did, just because I had a big long room. I like the glass as a border, since it's one of the only blocks that's sort of transparent. Well, I guess it is the only block, other than leaves, that's transparent in this set. So it kind of lets you see the stairs and see what's on the other side of the stairs, but gives a feeling that there's some kind of railing there. Had a pointed roof, slanted roof on this one. Another deck area. You can look out in the world. Nice views out the windows. Even though it's true that this is a very small city, you get the view out the window. I do feel like I created the feeling of being in a city. I don't know. I never lived in a city, but I think it's accurate. You can also go on the roof of this workshop area. I don't know if it's just my own taste, but I feel like a lot of people really like how in the current game you can place all kinds of different colored blocks. You have every color of wool and terracotta and concrete, and you can make a bright neon pink house wherever you please. But the subdued nature of all these blocks that were in the early game, I really appreciate. It kind of like people who like to drink their tea without any sugar. It might seem, I don't know, more fun to have sugar in your tea, but over time, I think the bright spectacles of the world sort of grow tiresome, and we yearn for something that's more down to earth. I made all these trees custom. I uh, was recently watching like I've had this idea before because if you look at other games that try to copy Minecraft, they'll do a lot of stuff like this too, where you can see each of the trees, the leaves are blocky. They're not, generally when people do custom trees, they do like a whole realistic tree shape. But in a block game, making the different parts of a tree also blocky, I think looks pretty nice. And you'll see other Minecraft alikes or other voxel games would do this kind of style of tree. Um, and also, I definitely have to give credit to Good Times with Scar for the trees he just put in Scarlands. He has some very cartoony trees. They're so cartoony the leaves are like opaque. But the square, blocky style of making organic things out of cubes, I think is actually really underutilized by people who build. So um, I think that's a cool thing to do. And again, it didn't require any new, I didn't have to use any cherry blossoms, nothing. It's just two blocks that have been in the game since the beginning. Well, almost the beginning. And something that I've pretty much never seen before came out of it. There's this brick building. We have another skylight here. Or I guess this is really more of a wood building. It just has brick floors because I thought, bricks make a nice floor. Except for this floor, which is wood. I really like this style of like log floor. I think that there are some real buildings that use this. Arch and stone supports for buildings. And let's go across the bridge here. Got little roots of the trees down there. I also did, actually that's worth mentioning, when I added some dirt and stone sort of texturing to the terrain, I also went for that blocky, big squares design that's kind of like, kind of reminds me of a lot of game design philosophy from when I was a kid, like Super Paper Mario had a lot of, obviously the resolution of Super Paper Mario is like, that game's in like 1080p, or at least my memory of it is in 1080p, but lots of the items in the game were sort of cartoonishly based off of the way old pixelated items would look in games. There was even that whole pixel world that was pretty fun. And so I think that's a cool design philosophy to not necessarily use the entire definition that you're able to have, but instead focus on distinct parts. Distinct chunks and sections. This building's like a weird wizard tree or something. Kind of looks like a Legend of Zelda character would live here. We got this building, which is like a little cabin. Got some dormers on the top. They're a little cramped. Kind of looks like the McDonald's cabin. But I think it's charming in its own way. I figured there would be a stone floor here. Just, like, makes sense. I guess if I furnish this, I would definitely put in, like, a furnace. Like, the kind you would heat your home with. Oh, I don't know how to get upstairs. This has got a slanted roof with a nice kind of attic. Kind of looks like there's, like, beams going across here. Here's our sort of like supermarket looking building. Very sleek, clean, sort of a unusual shape. It's kind of shaped like a lemon or something. There's also, you can walk over here to this area. The shape might be more clear if I go in here. So it comes to a point on either end and then it smoothly curves. And we have these long uh, horizontal windows that feel pretty modern too. Nice brick floors, because that's the definition of luxury. And you can get up on the roof too. There's also a area out here with the skylight, and like it's just a balcony area. It was interesting making these two shapes because they're both like this lemon shape or lime shape, or whatever you prefer. I'm a lemon guy myself. Uh, but one is just kind of squashed so that I create this balcony area. Has a walkway into here. This feels like this would be the part of the supermarket where they sell the liquor. So it's sort of like a little bit separate. They all do their tax forms separately, you know. Um, and yeah, I did lots of glass roofs just to get that skylighting. And we have this cobblestone border here, which, in addition to creating some texture, it being on top of it sort of looks like maybe there's like shadow being cast. So this wall is inset a little ways from the building. It definitely doesn't look like that if you're going up close, but I think that the ability to have details not look exactly perfect from some perspectives, but then look good from another perspective is actually sort of the point of art, I think. That's what abstraction is to some degree. Um, yeah, and here's more of the sort of cathedral looking part of the big building. Let's explore the big building. So there's many rooms in here. It would definitely take a long time to decorate this building, although I'm down to try it. Lots of arched windows and arched doorways. This is like a massive mansion, or maybe it's like a super bougie church. I don't know. This is the wood building we saw earlier that I thought kind of looked like an apartment or something. Well, I guess I think a lot of buildings look like apartments. But it has this area up here that seems like it would be a cool place to sit, or maybe this could be like a bedroom space, like a loft or whatever. I got a lot of skylights where I could fit them in. This is how you get on the roof of the brick building that I thought looked like a bakery. It has this weird lumpy glass. Well, I guess it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be a lump. It's supposed to be a round thing. I don't know if this would be a good design in real life because maybe it would like magnify the heat and burn this wooden floor. I don't know how optics works, but this is the top of that brick building. You can access it from here. This is sort of access to the upper floors with that staircase, but there's a lot of different staircases. Here's just a little room. I don't know what will go in here. You can see out there's like our area we were standing on the roof up there in the greenhouse. Got more skylights. And up here's an area I really like. Oh yeah, we can also get into the sort of Art Deco themed building here. The area I really like is going on hold. So, just a sort of standard kind of tall building, and if you go up here, got a glass roof where you can see stuff. There's a lot of spots in the build where the buildings were very close. The way I set up the 9 grid, it wasn't like 9 it wasn't like 9 and then stop and then do another 9. It was like I do 9, but the first 9 and the second 9 share a block in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's a lot of weird spots where the buildings overlap, although it's not an impossible problem to deal with. But anyway, let's go up these stairs for a minute. No, wait. I want to show this too. So down here, this is sort of the ground level entrance of, well, I guess it's this ground level entrance. That entrance over there is technically ground level too. But that's our boat is out there. And here's just a big long hallway in the ground floor. This behind here is dirt. So this is built along with the shape of the land. So here's our brick building. And here is that wood building I mentioned. Even without furniture, it is fun to explore this, in my opinion. So these spiral staircases are a little bit bigger because, this is the really luxury part of the build. But I think we can finally show off this part I really like. So if we go up here, the floor plan gets a little bit smaller, but also we have this balcony area with the glass covering. I really like this. It reminds me of, I guess this is where you would go if you wanted to do some, superhero smash through the glass and save the damsel in distress kind of stuff. Because it's this nice, inclined glass. But it's also just a cool view of the river. And it looks cool from the outside. Let's explore this floor a little bit more. More of these arched windows that I think look cool from the outside. Here's more of the cathedral-y area. There's a little balcony out here. You can look out at the city. I kick myself every time I call it a city. We call it a mini city. There's also a way to get into the town hall over here. We'll save that for later. And there's stairways up. I'm going to take this one just to be consistent. The stairway goes up to another room here. And now this room is separated. It's just up on top of the roof. But first let's go up here. We have another... This one's not a greenhouse, but it is another inclined glass sort of ceiling. There's definitely some security issues if you've got people I don't know, criminals with helicopters. It would be a big problem. But it's nice. It looks nice. Big window up here. Oh, I went down too far. Here. Gotta go here. So this is a separated sort of thing. You can see it sticks up higher than the rest of the building. And then there's this roof here, and we have a couple other areas that stick up higher. That part's sort of the cathedral-y part. This is another just raised area. This is that staircase we saw earlier. And we can go up on top of the roof here too. Great view up here. You can jump up over here if you really want to get dangerous. Yeah, I guess the view is not that good from right here. But this is one of the highest points in the city. This is one of the only areas you can't actually get to via staircase. But I guess you could parkour over there. Um, and here's that skylight we saw earlier. And then we can enter in here and go down like this. So let's finally, I think there's only one building left to explore, and that is the town hall. Well, I guess there's actually another building that's adjacent to it. So there's this building I thought maybe was like Legend of Zelda. Not my proudest creation, but it's definitely unique. Look at that town hall. I've done another thing of like trying to use cobblestone as like a dark block to sort of look like these pillars are popping out from the wall, but I wanted to create a little bit more space in the bottom floor. Or maybe I just wanted the variety of having that have depth and this have less depth. Anyway, there's this little deck area here that's nice, and you can get a good view of the rest of these buildings here with their nice arches and pretty glass roofs. And yeah, it's pretty simple on the inside here, just a bunch of glass. You'll note that no buildings have doors, because doors was not one of the blocks I had to use. Now, I went ahead and used torches, and you can see that there's, grass and flowers and stuff around here. So maybe I broke my rules a little bit, but if I had doors to work with, if doors were one of the 9 blocks I had, then I definitely would have used doors a lot more. I would have used them not as doors, but also as walls and decorations and all kinds of other stuff. So I didn't want to bring in that variable and create all those combinations, so I just left it out. This is a pretty area of the city, especially actually, let's go over here and look. It's a decent view. Anyway, let's get into the town hall. I think we've explored everything else now. This building is sort of the centerpiece, although I don't know. I don't know if it's the best brick building I could have made, but well, here's what I think. I think that smooth stone looks good as a border block for bricks, so I was going to do brick walls with the smooth stone pillars. And maybe that would have looked better. But what I ended up doing was saying, okay, the pillars and arches are red, and the backdrop is just sort of gray stone. And I don't hate it. I think most of all, what looks good about it is just the arches. So here's the bottom floor. I have these pillars in here just because when it's not daytime, because we have a little skylight going up to the top here, when it's not daytime, it gets very dark right here in the middle. Maybe you'll put like a desk across here or something to be like, welcome to town hall, how can I help you? Another of the only non-spiral staircases is here. Big long staircase. Not much going on these floors, just cool arch windows and more city views. As you can see, I've still stuck to only using either double or bottom slabs. And then finally, on this top level, this is basically the roof, we have a glass ceiling, and we have the only decoration really that's finished, and I think I would still put in some like maybe sitting area or something here, but uh, this is a permanent fixture of the city halls. It's a model of the city up on the top, and uh, this is the same thing I showed you earlier, except for that it's got a little glass right here, so it's just to give it a skylight down to the bottom of the building. But this is the model of the city. Let me try and recreate the view we saw just earlier. I was standing sort of right here by this tree, and I said, oh, that's kind of a good view. But this is the view I designed the city for, is this one. As you can see, there's sort of like a gradual sloping up from here to here and back down. And I don't know why I like that, but I like that. But it seems fitting to have a model of the city in the city hall. I guess generally what will actually happen is they'll have a model of the building inside of the building. But I modeled the whole town. So I guess it's kind of like it's like one of those train sets where they have the whole building. You can see we have more like entrances to the mansion-y part of the complex over here. It's all interconnected. I think if I called each connected area one building, then maybe there would only be like 6 buildings here, or less. You can also enter the mansion here. Let's go out the front of the mansion since it's one of my favorite looking places. It would definitely be fun to decorate this, just because there's so many different rooms. When I started, this was all just one big wide open floor, and that's how most of the buildings are. They just have their outer walls, and that's the floor plan. But this one was so massive that I had to split it up. So there's different rooms. Rooms with stairs, rooms with hallways, rooms with nothing, all that. All that jazz. So you could have a lot of different purpose rooms in this area. Honestly, for the limitations with smoothstone slabs, they still make darn good staircases. Like, it's not perfect, but that doesn't look bad. And let's walk out here. Even though it's the opposite view that I planned the city for, since this is one of the biggest buildings and I made it one of the most luxurious, I think it's one of the coolest views. It's just seeing it with all of its columns and things stretching up there and all the arched windows and interconnected bits and these beams going across, I guess. Not sure if I gave the city a good look from the angle I sort of designed it for. I feel like I could have been more creative with using blocks in really unorthodox ways. I think everything is pretty much used in the sense that it was intended by the creator. Like, building buildings is pretty orthodox as far as doing stuff in Minecraft. And I think that you could come up with so many different weird ways to use bricks. Like, I didn't do it in any of these buildings, and maybe I will. Bricks make a good, like, welcome mat because they're, like, red, so it looks like a red mat. So this view was a little bit better before I added the trees. But you can see that you can see a lot of the buildings. Maybe I'll go up onto this ledge here where the tree is. A lot of the buildings are visible from this angle over here. I pretty much just made buildings out of two main block types and then added some more decorational pillars and stuff. It's not revolutionary stuff, but I do really like the way this looks, and I think it would be even better if we had more life in it and more lived in by giving it furniture and stuff. Go standby is free. So yeah, I think this is a cool view. If you can get it from certain angles, you can even see the little tips of the cathedral building. It's nice. I have rarely ever created a whole environment like this. Like, most buildings I build are like this big or smaller. So, and this by itself is very unimpressive. But bringing it alongside all the other builds, it just adds to this combined atmosphere that's really cool. There's a lot of I didn't use leaves very much in this build, just to make like little flower pots outside of buildings. And I think there's definitely some creative uses you could have with leaves too. And there's whole kinds of things you can do where like we tend to think like, oh, if we're building something red, we should use red blocks to represent it, but maybe you could make it an alien world, and what is red in our world is green in their world, and you could use leaves to represent something we would never see as leaves in our world. There's so many possibilities that I feel like I've barely even scratched the surface on. And it's just so satisfying to have built what I built. Again, this is pretty much more than I would typically build in like months of play. And I built it all in like a week just because I didn't have to worry about a million different blocks. I just have 9 blocks to work with, and I just choose the best one. And I don't think it's boring, even though it could potentially be more interesting if I had a 10th block. It would really significantly exponentially increase the number of different possibilities if I had the right 10th block, but at the same time, I think that it doesn't make sense to start exploring completely new things when you haven't even finished exploring what you have already. Like, why are we trying to explore the deep reaches of space, but we haven't even seen like 30% of the ocean? It's kind of weird. So I think it'd be cool if people got this much use out of their set of blocks. Got this much use. If I can get this much use out of 9 blocks, surely people should be getting just even crazier with hundreds of blocks. And I think people do. People do make some pretty insane builds, but I think there still is something to be learned in the simplicity of having a limited block palette. So, I don't know, like, I think it's a fun challenge to try and build with just these 9 blocks. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if people are interested in this, if people thought that build was crap. Maybe it needs furniture. But I really like it, and I really had fun making it. So, I guess I'll throw this out there. If you would like to uh, do this challenge of just using stone, cobblestone, bricks, dirt, oak planks, oak log, oak leaves, glass, and smoothstone slabs. You can modify it, but and I modified it, I added torches as well. If you'd like to try and build something using just those blocks and see what you can make, I'd be interested to see what it is. I guess we could call it something like the 9 block challenge. I guess I don't even know how like DMs work or stuff, but you could send it to me, maybe, or comment about it or something. Uh, if you'd like to try the 9 block challenge, give it a spin. I think it was really fun. Uh, and I hope, at the very least, that I jostled your creativity, your made your noggin spin a little bit, and maybe that'll help you next for your next creative project. So yeah, this has been my exploration into what can be made out of just 9 simple blocks, and I hope you enjoyed it.